The edition with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue this discussion with regard to IEBC summons to 14 individuals of alleged breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. The 14 will be appearing beginning this hour before the Enforcement Committee of the IEBC at Anniversary Towers. Will be going there in a short while. In studio, we're still privileged to be having Brian Weke, political strategist and governance expert, nominated MP Isaac Maura, and political analyst Mark Bichachi. The question just before the break, and this is what I now want us to answer, is IEBC backed by proper laws for them to actually bite? Yes, because according to one of the dailies, yes, the best they can do is probably bar anyone from office, from running for office, if at all they they default in paying a fine after this. But can they go out and directly bar anyone who's found culpable of violence? Brian?
You know, I get to hear many people talking about prosecutorial powers, and that particular role has been given to the DPP. Now, if you look at the Constitution, and more so under Article 88(4)(e), IEBC has sweeping powers. And also, if you look at the Electoral Commission and Boundaries Act, it is very clear that IEBC has a lot of powers. Number one, if today they were to listen to these cases and they find somebody culpable, there are two things. Number one, they can actually stop you just based on the fact that your conduct was not proper during elections. They can actually bar you from running.
So they can outrightly bar any candidate from running.
Absolutely. Number two, as I've told you, in the history of this country, we have never had something called the Electoral Offences Act. Now, just before Parliament went on recess,
yes,
we actually passed a brilliant piece of legislation called the Electoral Offences Act. Again, IEBC has capacity to recommend to the DPP that you actually, over and above you being stopped from running,
this new act.
Absolutely.
Because the other question was, we've had electoral agencies for a while. Do we have any precedents where the electoral agency at that time has barred any candidate from running for office over breach of conduct?
I think Fred, look at the case of Wavinya Ndeti, because it gives us a perfect example of what IEBC can do and what recourse does anyone have. Also look at the ESO coalition's list of 20 individuals who they thought that should not be accepted to run for office. And then you look at that in the context of our ethnic divisions in this country and political affiliations. Now, Kenyans have learned an art of rushing to the courts. And I think someone was calculating and saying that you need at least 2 years before you determine a case. And that is what people do. In fact, sometimes when you hear IEBC telling people to take action, it's just to use the appellate, opportunity as to delay any form of teeth to bite, and so therefore give an excuse. So Wavinya Ndeti was seen to having party hopped. The courts gave stay orders, and today Wavinya is still in the race, but they are still in courts. And of course, this diverts her attention, for example, from concentrating on her campaigns. And you see even the cost and what have you. So the issue is also, at what point do you dispense justice? Because they say justice delayed is justice denied. So let us also look at it in that context, because our Constitution clearly gives the right of any accused to exhaust all appeal mechanisms, and nobody can take any action if those appeal mechanisms have not
including
been
IEBC.
Yes, including IEBC.
Yes.
So that then eventually you will find some appeal mechanism being ruled about when the matter has actually since lapsed, because we have had situations, and that's why we even put constitutional timelines in terms of petitions. People have been elected. You have a constitutional petition, an electoral petition being ruled 10 years after the election happened. You see, so that misuse of the court process, of the judicial process, is what really, in my opinion, makes people to be denied justice. And that is why, Fred, I'm saying we need to explore issues to do with arbitration. Because it has been proved the world over that you cannot get justice through legal mechanisms. Only what you do, you end up paying a lot of lawyers and speaking a lot of good English, some medieval that people cannot understand, so hiding the jargon, yet you're still denying people justice.
Yeah, Brian, had you finished what you were saying? I think we interrupted your train of thought as you were trying to say how much power that IEBC has.
Clearly, my train of thought has been interrupted.
No, glory of thought.
You know, I don't think, I hope Mora is hearing well, because, you know, that year, something could have happened. You know, as I was saying, IEBC has extremely sweeping powers. And when you hear Mora castigating the judicial process, again, the work of IEBC is based on the merits of the case that has been brought before it. They make a decision. Then somebody has to go through the appeal levels. And of course, if you look at our constitution, the appeal level from IEBC goes to High Court, because High Court has original jurisdiction. Now, for me, IEBC should not focus on what will happen next. They need to deal with the merits of the case. And if it means barring people from running, let them do it. Because they'll be judged based on the cases that were brought before them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark?
You know, the thing is, we need to understand the effect of being summoned by the IEBC and going through a judicial process, whether it's just within the IEBC or thereafter. You see, in any political campaign, there are two resources that are scarce. The first resource that is scarce is time. You need a lot of time to campaign, and with less than 50 days to the election, then definitely you can't afford as a candidate to spend your time in Nairobi when your constituency is in Maralal or Bungoma, as in the case of Lusaka. You are losing campaign time. Secondly, there is the money that you spend, not just in transport and stuff like that, but there's also legal fees that are required to be paid. And the third thing is the perception on the ground of what happens should you be barred by the IEBC. Even if you go to the Court of Appeal, there's a chance that your electorate has been told this guy might not be in the ballot paper. So they begin to make other decisions. So even on that merit alone, the power that the IEBC has to affect and infect the campaign of someone who's found culpable is huge, and that is not something that we can ignore. It's for the same reason that when you are arrested by a police officer, a lot of the time you choose to pay the fine so that you do not have to spend the night in prison. You understand? So we need to understand that the law, how it was created, is not just supposed to be a deterrent only when there is a court case going on, but even the process of being booked and going through these cases should be deterrent enough, because the time spent and lost during this case is time lost during your campaign, and that's what we also need to realize. So the IEBC, both in terms of the constitution and the acts that have been passed, and also in terms of the effect of just calling these cases, has a lot of power to affect and to punish those who go errant in this particular election.
Of course, it is 47 days to the election date. 14 candidates were taking part in the August elections are this morning appearing before the IEBC's Enforcement Committee over cases of alleged breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. The hearings should be kicking off anytime now at the Commission's offices, Anniversary Towers here in Nairobi. Notable names who've been summoned include Bungoma Governor Ken Lusaka and Kibwezi East Member of National Assembly Jessica Mbalu. Will be heading there in a short while. Let's now switch the discussions and look at the campaign trail. Now today, both NASA and Jubilee continue on the campaign trail, with President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy expected to tour Murang'a County. Meanwhile, the NASA brigade heads to Naivasha and Kuresoi. In a short while, we'll be heading to, we'll be linking up with our reporter Stephen Leto. I do understand we have Leto on phone. A very good morning to you, Leto. What exactly are we expecting from Naivasha and later on Kuresoi as NASA go there for their campaigns?
Well, a very good morning to you, Freddie. Like you put it, the National Alliance team is headed to Naivasha, that is in Nakuru County, and pick it from where they left yesterday in Kitengela and the entire Kajiado. But this time round, what they are doing is they are going what the NASA secretariat are saying, a brief tour of Nakuru County, because they will make some whistle stops in Naivasha town and several other markets before heading to Kuresoi, and that will mark the end of their tour in Nakuru County, and then they will be headed to Kitale. But for today, remember, this is one of the regions that is being considered that it is a Jubilee Party stronghold, and it is President Uhuru Kenyatta's bedrock, and this is what the National Super Alliance appears to be raiding their opponent staff today and trying to, sell the National Super Alliance agenda. There are a lot of things that they have been saying in terms of when they go to their opponent staff. Remember, when they were in Kapsabet, they went with a specific goal, a specific economic plan for that region. And so today I expect the same from them, trying to, tell the people of Naivasha what the NASA team has for them when they will be taking, should they take power after the August 8 elections. And also the issue. Remember the nature of Nakuru. Nakuru being some of a cosmopolitan county, particularly in the areas of Nakuru West. The issue in Naivasha basically lie on the the human conflict, the issues of the flower farms, the issue of the ranches and all that. There has been of problems pitting the neighboring counties of Narok, whereby the pastoralists have been doing some sort of invasion into the land in Nakuru, and that is what the National Super Alliance will try and speak around to see what.
We have lost Leto there on phone. Of course, we'll be linking up with Leto as well later on to give us beyond today what next for NASA after Naivasha and Kuresoi, probably the itinerary for the rest of the week. We'll also be trying to link up with another reporter who's embedded in the Jubilee presidential campaign team. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy are expected to tour Murang'a County today. This is after they were in Kiambu County on Sunday and a bit of Nairobi yesterday. Back in studio, the issue of whatever Raila Odinga raised yesterday in as far as his allegations that KDF or the military and the disciplined forces could be used to interfere with the Electoral Commission. Of course, that made headlines this morning. We've seen similar issues that he raises making newspaper headlines, top stories on TV stations as well, but they rarely go beyond 2-3 days. We've seen the issue of UNGA, ICC at some point, IEBC tender, land. Only last week the land issue, when Raila Odinga was in Kajiado, the land issue caused quite some upheaval, but it only lasted two or three newspaper headlines. Now it's been overtaken by the KDF issue. Brian, there seems to be a general lack of one galvanizing question or issue for this campaign. We are struggling to find one thing after the next. Today we'll talk about land, tomorrow we'll talk about IEBC tendering process, KDF now making headlines. Is this the way campaigns are usually run, 47 days to the election date, or this unusual?
You know, we have a big problem in this country, and that is the reason why even I feel sorry day after day for IEBC, because we are coming from a situation where elections have been alleged to be stolen many times, not once, not twice, not thrice. Now, and of course, what the opposition have been doing is to try and ensure that they seal all loopholes. You know, in the past they've been raising issues after the election. This time round they are raising issues before the elections, and you can see clearly this campaign, the way it's structured. Number one is to look at certain electoral processes, because if the integrity of this election, and I've said this before, is heavily dependent on the electoral processes. Now, the issue of ballot paper, of course, whoever has control of ballot papers have an upper hand, and that's why whoever gets the tender, we have to ensure that is an nonpartisan player. Number two, using of security agencies. This has happened in the past, and it is not all security agencies. Clearly you find certain agencies being used and certain individuals within those agencies. You and I know very well that during elections, and this happened since the Moi time, NSIS has been used, our military have been used before. So those are very serious indicators to raise now, and again remind them that they stand for national unity. Number three, of course, the issues of national issues, like the Unga issue is a big national issue. Issues to do with corruption is a huge determinant of these elections. But again, when you go to certain areas, there are local issues that identify to the local people. For instance, issues to do with land for the Maasai community. Those are historical issues that have not been dealt with to date, and they'll keep on coming. If you go to places like Meru, issues to do with the market for Mirak is a major issue. So again, this election, you have to raise the key things you're seeing opposition raising. But again, opposition has to galvanize and have a strong messaging for purposes of...
Do you think they've done that? Do you think they've come up with one galvanizing issue that could actually rally the masses?
I think it is quite early. And as of now, you have to deal with both local issues as well as national issues. But as we move closer...
So you agree they're yet to do that?
Absolutely, they're yet to do that. As we move closer to election, then they have to galvanize the real issues moving forward.
But Isaac Mora, do you get this feeling that probably we are focusing more on the how, probably on the integrity of the electoral process, and forgetting why we're even going to the elections in the first place, that there are probably some real issues that need to be addressed?
I think I can only speak on behalf of the Jubilee government and the Jubilee Party, that the Jubilee Party is very clear in its messaging to the population in terms of the key issues that the administration stands for, and it is predicated on issues of development. It's about moving the country forward. And Fred, you see a dichotomy. There are those who would want to remind us every day as a national issue about our ethnicity, about how divided we are, about how disadvantaged we are, and what have you. But the Jubilee message is about development, it's about moving forward, it's about hope, it's about giving opportunity to people. And when, for example, we hear leaders of ODM championing for land issues, a very emotive issue indeed. This is the issue that Fred made people to even fight for independence, reminding Kenyans about historical injustices, whether real or perceived, because honestly I don't see what historical injustice somebody from Kisii or Kamba in Kajiado would have when they were sold for land willingly by a Maasai. I don't think that in my opinion is anything to go by in terms of restoration, in terms of historical injustice, because it's a willing buyer, willing seller economy. And what I see though, Fred, is a situation where, because you don't have a clear agenda, and in this case on the side of ODM, you just spew a political propaganda. So today, and you attack all organs of government as to create a credibility crisis on the part of the electoral process. So today is IEBC, tomorrow is the NIS, the other time is KDF. And I think the question that emanates from all of this, if for sure you want to govern this country, if for sure you want to lead, how would you then provide leadership? How would you superintend over these national institutions when you have already questioned them? And it's a consistent narrative. Even in the last election, it was about the provincial administration. And for sure, the provincial administration in this country does a very good job. So it's just a question of making headlines, and then before something happens, the issue dies, you move on to another. Just to create political pandemonium, to create relevance without necessarily addressing the issue. I would want to imagine, Fred,
yes,
that it will be more clear when ODM launches its manifesto and Jubilee so that we see the clear issues.
When you were talking about ODM, I presume you were speaking about NASA?
Yes, I'm speaking about ODM because even Raila Odinga will be on the ODM ticket. There is no party called NASA.
Okay.
And so therefore, that is the party that is going to be voted for.
Mark Bichachi, of course, when it comes to the campaign agenda, do you agree that any of these political formations have actually mastered one particular galvanizing issue that they're moving with? When Isaac Maura insists Jubilee has, do you agree with that?
You know, one of the key things and I always try to give free advice. Number one, let's just understand this. There is no land issue in Kenya. There's an issue of access to wealth. Those two issues are very different, okay? The issue of access to wealth means that, listen, if I can buy land in the middle of Moyale and there's adequate transport and infrastructure to get me to Nairobi, then there's no crisis about the lands that are near Nairobi. That's the first issue. So the second issue is this. As a Kenyan, I have legal right to own land anywhere in this country regardless of my tribe. My ID card should not determine that because I'm a Luya, I can only buy land in Bungoma. I think that is an over-politicized issue, and we need to separate issues. There are the issues of land that was legally acquired, and there's land that has been illegally acquired. That is a police case. Let us not consider just because someone from a foreign community came and bought land within our borders means that that person is evil or has a negative agenda. I think we need to be very clear on that. And that's why I keep saying land is not an issue in this country, especially if you consider our population density is 69 people per square kilometer. The population density for Monaco is 12,000 people per square kilometer. Which crisis are we talking about? You understand? It's simply myopic to think that there's a land crisis in this nation. There is not. There's a lot of land. What we need to do is give people access to wealth. The second issue is, if you're going to address an agenda, a political agenda, you do not check what your scientific statements are or what your fixed statements are. You check what the emotions of the people in a nation are. And the problem with this particular campaign is we keep glossing over the issues that are critical and skipping over them. And this is my issue on both sides. Number one, you've got the nurses issue. None of the presidential candidates have actually taken a strong stand and said, where do I stand about the Kenyans who are dying every day because we as leaders have failed? Okay. The second issue is the issue of hunger. Where do we stand on that? You understand? We need to be able to push the issues that have a nationalistic agenda. That's where we need to move this country forward. We cannot begin to address the issues of this country, as my brother Weke has said, based on a particular place. Because here's the issue. If you say that in Kajiado the issue is land, let me tell you, in that same Kajiado, there are Luyas, there are Kambas, there are Kikuyus, there are Kalenjins, there are all these kinds of people. So listen, are you trying to say that your supporters in NASA, who are Kamba in Kajiado, should move out? Then what are you going to say to those who've moved out in Kitui? It does not make sense. As a leader in a national setting, in a place where you're running to be the president of this country, a place where you're running to be the symbol of unity in this country, every statement that you make, regardless of the political pressures, has to be altruistic and above board. It cannot be expedient for a single vote. Okay. You cannot make expedient remarks at a presidential level.
You know, Fred, when I listen to my friend Bichache, he sounds like he's just jetted in from Monaco or from Uganda. If you can sit here on national TV and say land is not an issue in this country, then clearly you don't come from Kenya. The entire coastal area, from Voi all through to Lamu, all through to Kwale, issues of land are very paramount. And you need to understand even why the coastal people feel alienated. There are people who own land to the tune of tens of thousands of acres, 100,000 of acres, yet that is their land. That is their native land. You know, it feels very sad. Bichache, if you have no problem where you come from in Bungoma or where I come from in Luo Nyanza, issues of land in Masai land are very pertinent. Gentlemen, you seem to be suggesting that land should probably be the one big question for this campaign. No, not necessarily. I'm asking about the general. You focused on land. There is no, you know, Issues of unga to masa is not a big deal. That is not their staple food. Them, the issues of land and their cattle, extremely important. So you'll have national issues that you'll sell nationally, and you'll definitely have to have local issues. That is why, Mark, they say all politics is local. Okay. Do not nationalize local issues.
Brian, I'd love to interrupt you there. We need to listen in to what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts with regard to the ruling on Wavinya Ndeti's case. Let's listen in.
I think we should start at quarter to in the court 37.
Yeah, we took that live signal from the Milimani Law Court just in time to see or to watch as Justice George Odunga walking out of the courtroom, and I guess that session has been adjourned. The ruling is yet to be delivered. We'll be returning there later on. We also do understand that Sam Gituku is already stationed at the IEBC, where 14 individuals, mostly candidates taking part in this year's elections, have been summoned over alleged breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. Do we have Sam? Yes, a very good morning to you, Sam. What
yes.
exactly is happening there as we speak?
Well, good morning to you, Fred. Actually, the sitting for the Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee hearings has moved from the IEBC to the KICC because of space constraints, and what we have so far is that the IEBC commissioners are preparing to come and start the hearings for 14 individuals. Of course, these are 14 individuals involved in 7 cases because each case has 2 persons, but the most important one that everyone is looking out for is the case between the gubernatorial aspirant for Bungoma County, that is the current governor Ken Lusaka, and Wycliffe Wangamati, who is vying for the same position on a Fort Kenya ticket. Of course, what brings them here is the scuffle that ensued in that county at the beginning of this month. They will be expected to explain what they know and what their account is in as far as that case is concerned, but that will have to be at 12 o'clock, that is midday today. There are some other cases, 3 other cases that will be happening at that hour, but currently what should be happening right now is the case involving Jessica Ndukumbalu, that is the Member of Parliament for Kibwezi East, between her and Professor Kaloki, who has been accused by the current MP of instigating some sense of violence, and that is the case that will be being heard starting 10 a.m. And also another case that has been scheduled for the same hour is the case between the aspirants for Starehe constituency, that is Steve Mbogo Ndwiga for ODM and Thomas Makori, who are accusing each other of similar matters in as far as the Code of Conduct is concerned. And then the other person that will be appearing before this committee that hour is Eric Onyango versus Neto Adola, who are aspirants for Rerede constituency. And then finally there is Kavore Kariuki versus Nixon Koril, who are aspirants in Langata constituency. Will be appearing here at 12 o'clock. But currently it's already 10:27 or so, but the IEBC commissioners are already within the building. We're expecting them to come and take their seats so that they can be in a position to listen to the different aspirants that are involved in these matters. But on my left, that's where some of the people who've been accused, some of the people who've been summoned to appear before the Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee, they are sitting, of course, waiting for the arrival of the commissioner so that this process can begin. But what you understand from some of the officials that you've spoken to is that this is not necessarily going to take a long time, because they just have to respond to the charges that have been leveled against them in as far as the list of charges that is concerned, which has already been served to the accused person. So they will be expected to respond to them in terms of what they think and explain why they should not be disciplined in as far as their candidature for the August general election is concerned. Fred.
Thank you, Sam. Sam Gituku there live from the KICC, where the IEBC is expected to start its hearings with regard to the 14 individuals summoned of alleged breach of Electoral Code of Conduct. Sam, thank you so much for that report. We'll be coming back to you for an update in a short while once the hearings do start. Let's now switch over to the UNEP headquarters here in Nairobi at Gigiri, where we do understand the UN is hosting a forum to discuss issues to do with the management of plastic bags. And our reporter Sylvia Chebet is stationed there. Sylvia, very good morning. What exactly is happening there? What can you brief us at this hour?
Well, in Ndimuli, the Stakeholders Forum on plastic bags, ban implementation is currently on here at Gigiri, the United Nations offices in Nairobi. They're discussing how best Kenya can implement this process, because as you know, this is a concept that has gained traction worldwide, and Kenya, however, is still struggling. In the continent, Morocco, Rwanda and Uganda have already taken the step, but Kenya is struggling. A lot of resistance from the industry, especially the manufacturers, who claim they will the process or the ban will lead to losses in revenue, losses in jobs, and therefore they say, they claim that they contribute over 5 billion shillings in tax to the government of Kenya, and therefore they feel that their contribution to the government has been significant and that this would be an unfair step. But today the government is, the National Environmental Management Authority and the United Nations Environmental Program are discussing how best Kenya can then take forward this process. According to Professor Judy Wahungu, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, this forum is not really to discuss whether whether the ban should be in place, but rather how best to manage the transition process and to have everyone on board to ensure that our environment is free of the plastic menace. Now, a few weeks ago, I had the privilege to talk to the lady who, the Member of Parliament in Rwanda, who introduced that motion or bill in the Rwandan government parliament to ban plastic bags in that country, which at this moment is not struggling, is already is completely free of the plastic bags menace. And she said, you know, it's really shocking that in some towns like Garissa, the leaves on trees have been replaced by plastic bags. Our environment is literally choking in plastic bags, and therefore, according to statistics, it's a 2010 survey. The plastic bags in Kenya, used in Kenya, indicated that there are at least 24 million plastic bags are being used in Kenya every month. Now that's a lot of plastic bags in the environment. It's clear that the environment is suffering from the plastic bag menace, and therefore this stakeholders forum is really to discuss at the end of the day, to come up with a roundtable discussion. We'll try to discuss how the ban can work, at least 60 minutes dedicated to what are the best alternatives and will they be ready on time, what are the constraints for the private sector, what will the sanctions be for non-compliance, what waste management systems will be put in place to address the plastic pollution in Kenya, and what are the impacts if Kenya doesn't act on plastic pollution. Timelines for the implementation will also be discussed. So we will be waiting to hear these salient issues discussed, and I hope at the end of the day we will have a clear plan on how Kenya will take this process, will take this step, and to rid the country of the plastic bags menace in Ndimuli.
Thank you, Sylvia. Sylvia Chebet there, live from the UNEP headquarters in Gigiri here in Nairobi, where a forum to discuss the ban on plastic bags is currently underway. Of course, Sylvia will be updating us in our subsequent bulletins. As Sylvia gave her report, you could see on the other side of the screen celebrations outside Milimani Law Courts. We do understand the High Court has overturned the IEBC committee ruling barring Wavinya Ndeti from vying for Machakos governor's seat on a Wiper ticket. Judge George Odunga has noted that the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal had made a decision that Wavinya was a bona fide member of Wiper. Let's listen into what's happening at the Milimani Law Courts as we speak.
Nimekuona sana wewe. Nimekuona. Hapana. kila wakati. Wabina tene. Machako tene. Tulisa ni tene. Leta zote. Rudi nyuma ndio media. Haya. Sejani hamsini sasa hapo mchungaji hapo pasta iko pasta hapo haya pasta iko hapo haya yuko pasta
Basi wacheni tuombe, basi wacheni tushukuru kwa pamoja. Baba Mungu tunasema asante wakati huu tumeshika kesi, ubarikiwe. Tumetoka mbali ndio maana tunashukuru. Maandiko yanasema katika Ebeneza yote inawezekana. Tumeona tumeshinda. Kwa basi muda wa tarehe 8 mwezi wa 8 kuwa pamoja nasi na upande wetu. Barikiwe, tupe amani kwa jina la Yesu. Amen. Haya, sasa kwa mataraka, kwa haraka na kuna sasa tuende. Unajua sasa tulikuwa kotini. Mara ya 8. Shinda. Sasa tunauliza. Mtu anasema nini? Kiana anasema nini? Tunasema Mudama anasema nini? Tunauliza Chebukati anasema nini? Sasa mimi nataka kwa sababu leo ni siku ya furaha, nataka kuambia Wakenya there is hope in the judiciary system. There is hope in our God that we praise the true living God. And that today, Wagin and Deti have begun a win of Machakos gubernatorial seat. Tunaambia wapinzani wetu kwamba sasa tumeanza kuchukua 80% of the Machakos vote. Napenda tuanze. Ningetaka sasa nimuite Deputy Governor wa Nairobi, wanamweke akikaribisha Deputy Governor wa Machakos. Tibim! Machakos Tibim! Nairobi Tibim! Leo imeshindwa. Tumekuwa huko ndani kwa mahakama. Jaji amesoma ruling yake, na kwa ruling yake amesema Jubilee ishindwe. Kwa ruling yake amesema sinema ya Alfred Mutua imefika kwa ruling yake amesema Wavinya Ndeti will be the first woman governor in Kenya. Kwa hiyo leo tunaambia Alfred Mutua aingie kwa ofisi yake, afute virago, aende na tunaambia dada yetu Wavinya Ndeti atayarishe virago zake, aingie akomboe sauti ya Machakos. Kwa hiyo wananchi, Kalonzo Musyoka amefurahi zaidi na amesema nyinyi wananchi mngojee yeye, ako njiani kusherehekea na sisi.
Wananchi wa Machakos Civil, asanteni sana kwa kuingia hapa kwa wingi kusimama na sisi, Mheshimiwa Wavinya Ndeti na mimi mwenyewe na nyie watu wa Machakos, na Mungu kabisa tunashukuru sana kwa kusimama na sisi. Unajua hii ndio ilikuwa mara ya 8 kupelekwa hapa kotini. Unanisikia sasa? Unasikia sasa? Unasema unajua ndio mara ilikuwa ya 8 kupelekwa kotini. Lakini Mwenyezi Mungu ameamua vile watu wa Machakos wanataka, hakuna Mungu anaweza zuia. Kwa hivyo nawashukuru sana kwa kusimama na sisi. Lakini mjue Chebukati, what are you doing? Chebukati must go. That is not independent. Chebukati is not free. Yeye mwenyewe is supposed to be a referee. How can he start already showing bias? Kwa hivyo sisi watu wa Machakos wameongea na hakuna njia nyingine. Kwa hivyo tunashukuru sana, na lazima tusimame pamoja. Wapinzani watu wajue safari ya kukomboa Machakos imeanza rasmi. Kwanza wakuwe tayari kusema kwamba sisi tuko tayari kutembea na wananchi wa Machakos, tukomboe Machakos. Sababu tumeumia sana, hatutaki mchezo tena na wananchi wa Machakos. Kwa hivyo asanteni sana kwa kuwa imara, na sasa tunawatuma mwende kule mashinani, mwende mkusanye kula zote, ndiposa mjue safari imeanza.
Live pictures there from outside Milimani Law Courts, where supporters of Wavinya Ndeti are currently celebrating. The High Court has just cleared Wavinya Ndeti to run for the Machakos gubernatorial seat under a Wiper Party ticket. Of course, IEBC had presented a petition and actually barred Wavinya Ndeti from vying, claiming that she had party hopped, which is against the law. Now, I need to thank my analysts for the previous hour, Brian Weke, Isaac Moore, and Mark Pichachi, who have already left studio. We're now joined by Bonke Kumwaya, political analyst, Eunice Lumalas, advocate and also governance analyst, and Danstan Omari, constitutional lawyer and political analyst. Bwana Omari, quick thoughts on the happenings in court this morning.
I was in that court in the morning, then I rushed back here. The question, Fred, that I as an analyst I'm looking at is the effect of a decision of the chair of the IEBC being reversed by the High Court. Is the effect that the chair of the IEBC, one Wakili Chebukati, is in a tussle with an aspirant who is supposed to subject herself to that chair on 8th of August. Is the dragging of the name of the IEBC, the way you have seen it, palatable for the nation at this time? The IEBC, and I've always put it, Fred, with you here on Citizen Extra, that the IEBC should distance itself from matters parties, so that it remains a neutral arbiter. So in my own view, I think that the biggest loser is the IEBC, and they have lost because they are operating in a legal manner without understanding that they must be operating in a political toxic situation. Number two, Wavinya Ndeti, this is the 8th time, as they are claiming, she has survived the wrath of the alleged people who are fighting her. And these people are being branded to be Jubilee, who they are not. They are now taking another animal called IEBC and lump them together. Politically speaking, I fear for any candidate who is going to contest against Wavinya, because Wavinya has been created to be a serious political animal in Ukambani land, a person who had no clout at all. This is the same narrative that you've seen people like Nanok, people like Joho, and others become entities of themselves. Has Wavinya taken over to be the #2 de facto Kamba leader after Kalonzo Musyoka? This is now the making of the Iron Lady of Ukambani called Wavinya Ndeti. And lastly, Fred, my argument is this. We need as a nation to formulate proper laws for party primaries. It was chaotic I was in that court for more than 30 matters. There are no laws. The legal framework to deal with the party issues need to be resolved. And we need to strengthen the registrar of political parties office, because there was no party that had a party register.
Yes.
The problem here is a question of party register.
Okay.
Had we had a party register for Jubilee, for CCM, for ODM, we could not be in this position.
But Omar, you said something very interesting, that you fear for the IEBC. Don't you think that IEBC walked into this by themselves?
IEBC has always been working. If anybody read the First and Second World War, there were those Japanese soldiers called the kamikaze who were ready to die, blindly going into a grave. IEBC has been walking into the graveyard of the political kichinjio. Look at it. Today, this is a decision against the IEBC. On Friday, we are waiting for the decision again, where the IEBC has sued to get the power to declare results. If the decision goes either way, yes, what is the likely decision position of the IEBC? We have seen the IEBC with the Al Ghurair issue. Why should the IEBC be involved in tussles at this critical time? If they were listening, and I'm sure they are listening, they should employ strategists who can foresee what is the likely outcome of any action that they do. Fred, another issue. I tend to see the IEBC the same way I see my friend here, the Jubilee Party. They never anticipate how the message will be taken and how the opposition, called NASA, will twist that story and give it the propaganda angle. My own submission is that the IEBC needs to employ people who are legal and people who have the capacity to do propaganda. The IEBC is always found pants
flat-footed. Yeah, but now, but Omari, before I let you go, of course, you know that today the IEBC is actually hearing 7 different cases where it has summoned about 14 different candidates who are alleged to have breached the electoral code of conduct. Whichever way these cases go, these candidates could still move to court. Do you think that this is an additional problem that the IEBC will have to handle?
That is what, Fred, I'm saying. If they consulted people who know what is happening, they have no capacity to stop anybody from contesting. The decisions they will make decisions by those people. The same people, tomorrow, they will go to court. We will not complain as lawyers because we have made a lot of money because of the IEBC making some mistakes. Then we get jobs to go to court. The lawyers have already prepared the petitions. Once the IEBC makes the decision, the lawyers will be smiling to the bank. But that question that people should be asking, should the IEBC be doing what is outrightly wrong? And they know very well that they have no jurisdiction to bar anybody. In my own take, I think that today they have listened. They should abandon those 14 cases and tell the people, let Wanjiku decide.
Thank you so much, Bonadansa Omari. Let's listen in to Avinya Ndeti as she speaks outside the Milimani Law Courts.
They need to be fair. Kwa sababu kama wangepata, kama wangeuliza registrar political parties vizuri na wauliza maswali, hatungefika hapa. Lakini tunasema yaliondoana kivile. Kenya is bigger than Chebukati, Kenya is bigger than Wakili. As the judge has set the tone of reconciliation, the judge has said we need to reconcile. And I am handing over an audit list to IEBC. Na wao pia waninyoshie mkono mzuri. Haya mambo yote yameisha. Tuende kwa election and we are asking IEBC to allow our elections to be free and fair. And credible. Kwa hivyo mimi sina mengi, ninawasamea tu, ninawasamea. Kenya ni kubwa kushinda. Kenya ni kubwa kushinda Wavinya. Kenya ni kushinda IEBC. Let us look forward as a country to having peaceful, free and fair elections. Asanteni watu wa Machakos, tumesimama na mimi. Watu wa Kenya, tumesimama na mimi. Our members, Wiper, chama cha Wiper, tumesimama na mimi. tunawashukuru sana Mwenyezi Mungu awabariki. Thank you so much and God bless you. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank my party leader. My party leader has always been there for me. Kila tukija kotini ananipigia simu anaongea na maloya. I want to thank you very much. And also to thank wale principals watano wa NASA wamesimama na mimi. Asante Raila, asante Kalonzo, asante Wetangula, asante Mudavadi, asante Isaac. Thank you for standing with me.
Wiper candidate there for Machakos gubernatorial race, Wavinya Ndeti, is speaking for the very first time after the High Court overturned an IEBC committee ruling which barred her from vying for the Machakos governor's seat. Justice George Odunga noted that the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal had made a decision that Wavinya was a bona fide member of Wiper and that IEBC committee had no power to nullify the decision of that decision. IEBC is prohibited from implementing the said deduction, and therefore Wavinya Ndeti will be on the ballot come 8th of August. Back in studio, we do have another lawyer, Eunice Lumalas. Eunice, your quick thoughts about what's happening there. Of course, you heard what Bwana Omari had to say about this particular issue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Indemuli. Now, for me, it's a big win for justice in Kenya. I agree entirely with the decision of Justice Odunga, and I laud him for standing on the side of the law on this one. Because IEBC, I think, is put in a catch-22 situation, and it requires much more than just law to apply their work. Because yes, there is a dispute resolution process that puts IEBC at the core of now dealing with disputes after the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal has finalized, after the nominations process. But that requires a bit more of common sense, a bit more of reconciliatory attitude in dealing with the matters. Now, when you see already the Political Parties Tribunal has made a finding that a specific candidate belonged to a certain party, like Honorable Wavinya, and then IEBC goes to sit as an arbiter and then makes a determination on technicality, then it really brings to question whose interest IEBC is serving. I personally am against the whole idea of having IEBC deal in a direct manner as that in resolving those disputes. I think we need to look at the entire scenario and make an amendment.
Are you saying that IEBC is coming out as more confrontational?
Yes, and it shouldn't. In my view, it shouldn't. It should apply more. It should be alive to the politics. Okay, alive to the law and the politics, and merge the two. Because elections is all about sovereignty of the people. You have to weigh what is at stake for IEBC and for the people of Machakos, particularly for this instance. And therefore try as much as possible not to be seen as tackling or going against certain candidates. I think it's very dangerous.
But with regard to what is happening today at the KICC, where the IEBC Enforcement Committee is listening to these cases of alleged breach of electoral code of conduct, do you think, like Bwana Danston Omari, your colleague there, suggested that IEBC should actually distance itself from this? Do you agree with him?
I think it's the mandate of IEBC to deal with the dispute. So I believe in their own mind and thinking they're doing the right thing by entertaining these cases. And yes, we need someone to deal with the disputes. But in my view, it would have been better if maybe there's an independent sort of body to look at those violations and to make a finding upon them. Because yes, I mean, there can't be a vacuum. We have legislated and said there's an elections code of conduct. There has to be a body to enforce the elections code of conduct. And yes, we want a situation where even if I am Jubilee, I can walk to a perceived stronghold of NASA, and if I'm NASA or Third Alliance, I can walk into a Jubilee perceived stronghold without any fear of influence or violence or anything. We need someone to enforce that, and in my view, the law has given IEBC that. But whether IEBC should sit there with maybe Bonachebukati as chair and the rest, to now with media and everything, to now listen to those disputes, then we are likely to politicize the entire process and not meet the desired end or result.
Now that we've listened to the legal side, or the legal opinion, let's listen to a political one as well. Bonke Komwai, political analyst. Quick thoughts on what's happening.
Thank you so much, Ndibuli. Well, I would congratulate Madam Wavinya Ndeti to run for the decision the court has made this morning. Well, I would disagree with my fellow legal experts who've been here, Mr. Mari and my sister here. You see, politicians in any political discussion or any political decision, yes, I know Wavinya has won it today, and he can use any propaganda to blame the government, would blame Jubilee, the ruling party, and even Mutua. As you know, IEBC... And
IEBC as well.
Yes, as you know, IEBC is an independent body. IEBC does not work for Jubilee Party. IEBC is like a spiritual leader among the NASA community and the Jubilee supporters. So any decision the chairman of IEBC would make, I won't blame them. I mean, they know what they should do because they are well equipped, they have finance, they have everything to hire experts who can advise them on any political decision, the repercussions they may experience after the decision they're making as far as politics is concerned, because they are dealing with, there are some politicians who are shenanigans in the world of politics, and they are so good in propaganda. I look at it from political perspective, as we had explained. What is worrying me right now is the sentiment I've just heard from my fellow leaders from NASA side, that is Wavinya and the supporters who are there. You see, when you're starting blaming Jubilee and blaming IEBC, the chairman of IEBC, they are trying to poison the brains of their supporters. How do they expect their supporters to trust the result of these elections? What if their candidate has won? Will they appreciate the same IEBC? So I would advise our leaders, especially Wavinya Ndeti, or I will consider a sentiment based on emotions. It should be sober. If she wants to convince Kenyans and the great people of Machakos, she has to come out as a rational leader, to be sober and analyze issues the way they should be. I would not accept, and I will disqualify the mere fact that she's trying to drag IEBC into our issues, IEBC and the Jubilee Party. As the government, no one has interest to interfere with Wavinya. Wavinya as an individual has no capability, and no one can stand to drag her. If the people of Machakos will make a decision to elect as their governor, yes, that is well and good, and we appreciate.
But don't you think that by being dragged through this court process and emerging victorious at the end, that it actually emboldens Wavinya Ndeti's bid and actually gives her quite a boost against her opponents going into the race? Remember, it's only 47 days to the election.
Yeah, it is true, but as you know, IEBC is not a political party, or it's not a political body. But I would come in as a politician and to advise and also to tell Kenyans that whatever Wavinya is trying to propel tonight, this morning, it's purely propaganda. If she has won the case, let her appreciate. I like the fact that they call the pastor to pray for her. I don't want to dispute the decision based on the wisdom of the learned judge Odunga. Whatever decision he has made as a judge, he is more experienced in these issues than I do. So if he has made that decision, I think Wavinya should appreciate and go back to people of Machakos and tell them what she can do, which Mutua has not done. But if they are playing politics of seeking sympathy from the public, we don't want politics of emotion. It is a political season,
Banakumaya, and people will use different methods.
That's why we cannot allow her.
Whether through sympathy or through actual vote hunting. But, okay, let me ask you now what it does to the perceived opponents of Wavinya Ndeti, the likes of Johnson Muthama, Kiala, the deputy governor, Machakos, and who was engaged in a tussle with Wavinya earlier on in as far as the Wiper Party nominations were concerned, and Bwana Alfred Mutua himself, who's now the main rival in that particular race. What does it do to them watching, and what does it mean to them politically watching Wavinya Ndeti go through this court process and emerge victorious at the end?
I like the fact that the Jubilee Party has really tried in terms of enhancing women leadership in this country. I would encourage Wavinya, like our candidate, Honorable Anne Waiguru. Women should also be into leadership, but it's not a matter of just being a woman in the leadership. What does Wavinya Ndeti has? Recently, I watched Wavinya Ndeti on Jeff Koinange live on it was a week ago on Wednesday. And the manifesto she has, they're just propaganda propelling. Where in Kenya does we have a dumping site?
Propaganda is part of campaigning, yes, a tool in campaigning.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, if you look at the development Machakos governor has done, I always celebrate Governor Mutua, because Governor Mutua has demonstrated the manifesto of Jubilee Party and what we had for Kenyans. When we were talking about the stadiums, Mutua is the first governor who built the stadium and approved to Kenyans that the implementation of manifesto we had could be done by, by engaging the government into issues of development, because the money he's been using to develop Machakos, they are coming from the Jubilee, from the ruling party and the government led by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
So he's been against the propaganda of being loyal to the opposition leaders and assuring Kenyans that if you want to deliver to Kenyans, first of all, you must have the interest of common wananchi at heart. Okay. Not this issue of worshipping your political lord. So Wavinya should come out very clear to tell us, because I know she's really appreciating the fact that this is not the Machakos we had in 2012, the Machakos we had in 2013. If he's appreciating our political leaders, remember Wavinya was a political leader. And since she has failed, being an incompetent party leader, how can you dismantle your party to join somebody? That tells you how you failed.
Those are the opinions of one Bonke Komwai, a political analyst. Remember, the High Court has overturned IEBC committee ruling barring Wavinya Ndeti from vying for Machakos governor's seat on a Wiper Party ticket. The Judge George Odunga noted that the political parties disputes tribunal had already made a decision that Wavinya was a bona fide member of Wiper, and IEBC committee had no power to nullify that decision. Let's now head to a break. Citizen Extra continues.